Hello, I'm Adam,
And I'm Adrian.
and welcome to Cast from the Crypt. Today we have a very special film. It's called Stir of Echoes, and it came out in 1999, and it is starring Kevin Bacon. Uh, my brother rented this from the local library, and we watched it together. That is how I
Wow.
discovered it.
What put
um,
it on your radar before that?
no one. Lucas.
Oh,
Yeah, my brother, I don't know where he got this off of his radar, but yeah, he presented this and we watched it and I had a fun time. What did you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. I found it to be kind of shockingly good. Because I'd never heard of it before. But what's funny is you had brought it up, and I was like, man, Stir of Echoes, that sounds so familiar. What is that movie? And sure enough, I had seen a review by somebody on Letterboxd about this movie, in which they were like super underrated. Nobody knows about it. Why is that? And now we've watched it, and I have to agree. I really like it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you liked it. There's certain movies I just love to watch, and this checked every box. It came out in 1999, and oh boy. Oh boy, can you
Yeah, you
tell?
can. It reeks of 1999.
That's my favorite part about this movie by far. I don't know about you.
It's pretty dang. Yeah, I mean that's exciting. For me, what I thought was best about this movie is I'm not a big ghost movie guy. I don't care for supernatural horror as much as I do slashers and creature features and stuff like that. And I didn't know what to expect going into this, but I wouldn't even call it horror. I enjoyed the mystery behind it. And though I kind of figured it out pretty early, the big reveal, I definitely was still pretty enthralled. And I don't know, I was just enjoying the ride. And I didn't, though it reeks of 1999 and it's very of the time, it didn't distract me, in ways that other movies, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, is so clearly a relic of its time. So much so that you can't stop thinking about it while you're watching the movie. Every little detail, you're like, oh my God, of course. Yep, that song. Yep, that actor. With this movie, it wasn't hitting me that way as much. I was genuinely into the story too, which I found surprising.
See, I will admit that I was here for the 90 for 99. It was maybe that's cuz that's what I tend to fixate on, but it's where I found the most enjoyment in this movie and that's why I was like, "Oh, man." the whole time. The whole time. As a ghost story too, like I think the problem with most ghost stories is they're very very run of the mill. Like there are and I think most horror movies, there is a formula you follow. Slasher movies, of course, we are so familiar with that formula. Ghost stories are not usually that different from each other, and they're usually not very interesting because of that. I think The Conjuring is probably the most overrated movie ever. Like, I think that's a nothing film. I rewatched it recently because I thought maybe I was being too harsh on it, but no, it's so boring. It's so uninteresting. And I think,
I completely agree.
yeah,
I hate the Conjuring series. I don't find it interesting.
yeah, most ghost movies tend to be like that, and that's the problem. And this movie is exactly, yeah, okay, typical ghost movie. There's a haunting, and now he has to find out why that ghost died, and free her spirit. Absolutely run of the mill. But for me, it almost doesn't focus on the ghost that much. It's more about this guy and his wife. It feels like the ghost plot, which is the main plot driving the story, but it's not focused on as much as these two characters. And that is the one thing that this movie's kind of different. That's why you could call it maybe more of a thriller than a horror movie.
Yeah, I agree. In more ways than one, this is a family movie. Everything revolves around this family. We find out in the beginning that they are clearly struggling. Kevin Bacon's character His name's Tom. He's, a blue collar working class guy. Um, his wife and him are clearly on hard times, and they already have one young son. Um, and we basically follow him throughout the entire movie, him and his son both. And they have this, of course, sort of paranormal power that we'll get into in a second. But um, I thought that the relationships in this movie were very good. I really liked the married couple. And that's great because that would have murdered this movie if I hadn't. Because we are truly with them the entire run. And I agree with you. I do think that's what sets this apart, especially with horror movies from this era. Relationships. I mean, we've already covered so many of them, and it goes without saying that relationships in those movies are so cartoon-like and never very believable. But right from the opening scene where they find out that they're expecting another child, and so clearly they are already having a hard time supporting the one that they have. I was with them. I was invested in the human element. And yeah, for me, I was actually more interested in the human element than I was the supernatural element, which is maybe a double-edged sword.
I think so too. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't need to be invested in the supernatural element so much just because, like I said, that's what you normally get. I I was here for the just ridiculous 90s-ness of this. But yeah, I think this movie puts a lot of investment in this relationship, and I think it pays off. I think it is absolutely the movie's strongest suit. Could I talk a little bit about the plot? I know it's really early, but I just want to set it up, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Just because this is what I love about this movie is, right off the bat, ridiculous 90s. So Tom Witzke, like you said, is a blue-collar guy. I think he builds phone lines. He was literally, like in the first scene, wearing a blue collar. They're really trying to drive that point home. And then he comes home, and we're introduced to his, like, kind of semi-goth wife who's got this choker that she wears the entire movie. Never takes it off. And he immediately was like, yeah, I'm blue collar now, but we're just waiting for the band to take off. and right there, I was sold.
Yeah, that had me rolling a little bit.
Yeah, we're also immediately introduced to the fact that he has another child. I think he comes home, his wife's there, and his wife's sister's there, so we're also immediately introduced to her. And she's also, like, kind of goth and edgy. If she's wearing some ridiculous clothes, I don't even remember what she's wearing, but she, like, immediately goes, oh, well, if you won't tell him, I will. She's pregnant. And, like, that's the beginning of the movie. Like, it's been 3 minutes.
To which he replies, bummer.
Yeah. Bummer.
Sorry, we should just throw this in there. He says bummer. And Kevin Bacon's character, they live in Chicago.
Very important,
but he's got, like, this... It is important, but also, why does he sound... He sounds like he's trying to do a New York/Boston accent.
Yeah, so his accent is off.
Off.
Yeah, Catherine Erb plays his wife, Maggie. And I think her Chicago accent's pretty good. I mean, it's not like I have a crazy understanding of the Chicago accent, but, like, even I could tell. I was like, Kevin, you're sounding a little strange.
Yeah, most of the time he's just doing this, like, yeah, it's me, Kevin Bacon. And he's like, I got this rasp to him.
Yeah.
That's so clearly put on.
Yes. So this is all you learn all this, like, the first 3 minutes of the movie, and so I absolutely am sucked into the movie after discovering all these fun facts about it. His wife storms off because he says bummer, and then immediately he's like, come on, babe, and she's like, all right. Like makeup. So you get a sense that the relationship's rocky, but also they're making it work. They have a young son. They're just struggling to make ends meet, and now she's pregnant again. And that's...
Well, this woman is nothing short of a saint. The entire movie, she forgives in like 5 seconds things that would require couples therapy.
Oh, absolutely. No, I completely...
Like, he yells at her and, like, it just gets, like, especially towards the end of the movie, but he just gets so aggressive, not necessarily towards her, but it's still like troubling behavior. And she's just like, ah, okay, and like rubs his shoulders.
I mean, it follows that, classic, like, you're being haunted, so you have to, the ghost wants you to discover what happened to them so you can free their spirit and, catch the killer. And then, of course, like, as the movie goes on and as the ghost gets more in your face, they become crazier. They become more obsessed with solving the mystery, solving the murder. That's the classic formula. And he's doing that throughout this movie. But by the end of the movie, I was like, who cares about the ghost? I was like you've ruined more or less your life. Like, your relationship's in shambles. Not to get too into it, but he destroys their house. And I was like, okay, let's say you find the body and the ghost is freed from being stuck on Earth and, yada, 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 happy ending, all the good stuff happens. Okay, your house is destroyed. You have no money. The police are going to find a basement in your destroyed home. Like, there's no happy ending for you. Like, maybe the ghost gets... Like, who cares about the ghost at this point? Like, you got to live your life. You are still alive, at least.
I think what makes him do it, though, and I certainly bought it, it was enough for me, was that he's just so tired of, like, getting these visions and knowing everything, that he just wants to get rid of this presence that's affecting him.
I don't know. I was like, slow down.
For context, in the beginning of the movie,
yeah, please,
or not the very beginning, but once we've already met these characters and we know who they are, kind of how they function, they're at a party, and there's some neighbor characters there that you can tell they are acquaintances. Really, they are neighbors that they're friendly with. And are they drinking at Tom's house?
I believe they are at the neighbor's house. Lisa, who is Maggie's sister, is at this party as well. I think it might be her party. I'm not sure, but you tell what happens.
Yeah, she wants Tom to be more open-minded in general, and she's a crystal wearing, supernatural loving person, and we know this from the very first minute we meet her.
I think her sister, in literally the first moment we see her, she's like, well, my sister's a witch, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
She's clearly like some sort of clairvoyant, but she decides that at this party she wants to hypnotize Tom, and the suggestion that she gives him, because when you hypnotize people you give them a suggestion, is to be more open-minded. And this sort of just sets the story in motion, and now Tom is getting these visions. And the very first vision he gets is some sort of like kerfuffle, a fight, a physical altercation, and he sees a girl.
Yeah, and then he wakes up and everybody's laughing at him. He's still in the party. They say he was like freaking out and crying and talking about like a school bully from when he was like 12. And that ends up being like literally neither here nor there. That has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, I was really expecting something to come of that, and it never did.
Yeah, nothing matters. So whatever, he has to leave because he's like freaked out. He just saw some crazy vision of a murder. So I think they just end up going home after that.
Early on in the movie, and this is worthy of noting, really actually in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the film, Tom's son is taking a bath, and he's talking, and you think he's talking to Tom, but there's some clever camera work done there where it slowly zooms out, and you realize that Tom is not in the same room as his son. He is very close to him, but he doesn't even realize that his son Jake is talking to some sort of being that isn't in the room. Now, fast forward, and Tom is at this party, and he's been hypnotized, and he sees in this vision that he has a violent fight between clearly maybe 2 or 3 people, and he sees a girl. Well, now, us, the viewer, we are left to believe that there is some sort of connection here, right? And I think the movie does a good job setting this all up. We find out later because Tom and his wife decide to get a babysitter one night when they go to a high school football game to watch their neighbor's son play. We find out that that babysitter's sister, her name's Samantha Kozak, has been missing for some time. In fact, I think the exact number is 6 months. We find this out through a scene where the babysitter overhears Jake via baby monitor talking to Samantha. And she freaks out. That's her sister. She's been missing. She basically kidnaps Jake in a fury, takes the kid to a train station where her mother works, and is like, he knows something, this family's insane. All this while Tom gets a vision of his son being taken. And they go and they meet the babysitter and Jake at the train station. And there's an entire thing with a police officer. This is when stuff starts to move really quickly.
For sure, this movie moves quickly after that. Yeah, so the train station's a red herring. Her mom works at the train station. She was like, I wasn't trying to kidnap her. I was taking him to my mom. And they don't press charges, even though this girl literally kidnaps their son. So much happens. All right, first of all, she says, who are you talking to? And he says, Samantha. And her first reaction is, kidnap this child. Take it to your mother. Because your sister's name is Samantha. There can be more than one person in the world named Samantha. This kid can have an imaginary friend. You know, I was expecting him to say, like, some creepy, only Samantha could know this. How could this child know this? But no, he simply says that the imaginary person he's talking to is named Samantha. And that is enough to send Debbie over the edge. And I understand. I understand. I know her sister's been missing. But come on. You kidnapped that child.
Tom's wife wants to press charges very clearly, and Tom is the only reason that they don't. He talks over her and tells the cop that he's not interested. And it's probably a good thing, because there is a large reveal at the end of the movie that probably would have looked pretty incriminating had she been arrested and said, hey, they clearly know something about my sister. So it's actually to his benefit he didn't press charges.
Yeah, but
they would have found a body.
Well, hindsight's 20/20. They didn't know that. During this confrontation, Debbie shows Tom a picture of her sister, and he recognizes her as the girl from his visions. So then he goes home and becomes absolutely obsessed with this girl from then on. He's like trying to retrace his steps and do the things that caused him to see a vision in the first place. He's doing like some detective work, and he starts asking people around the area if they know about this Samantha Kozak girl. And here I want to talk about, they live in Chicago. They live like in the city of Chicago. There's like a monorail that goes right above this neighborhood. They live in a brownstone, and I don't know where in Chicago they live, but I have to move there because it feels like every single night everybody just parties in the street. It feels like everybody in the neighborhood takes to the streets and just drinks profusely. I was like, what was happening? Okay, they had a party this first night, and then the second night, once again, everybody's partying in the streets. Come to find out, it's just a high school football game. And then here, I don't even know why they're partying in the street. It seems to be early in the morning, but everyone's in the street, and everybody has a beer, and I have no clue why.
It's the Midwest, that's why.
Yeah, party in Chicago, I guess.
If you lived in the Midwest, all you would do is drink, too. And very interesting that a high school football game is such a big deal. Is it a big deal?
It's not, no.
In the South, I get it, right? In those small communities. But in the city of Chicago, a high school football game is a big deal?
Yeah, the city, too. Like, in the city. Everyone's
Chicago.
Sure. It's like, okay. This is also, it's scattered throughout the movie. I can't really name any specific times, but throughout the movie, another thing that's like, hey, 1999 is the fact that when they were editing this movie, it really feels like they got some editing technology and like techniques that were very new at the time and are very dated by today's standards. And so I guess they got this new kit of new effects, and they slap that stuff everywhere, and it is so funny. It's so ridiculous. Jake at one point speaks with like this really dumb, modulated, deep voice. And I don't remember what scene it is, but there's some scene where, like, for whatever reason, all of the colors in the shot, like, get inverted and then turn red and then go back to normal. And it really doesn't serve a purpose.
I thought they were going to come back to that too, and they just don't. He starts to see, like, as he's walking to the football game, that's when it is. Every red light he sees makes his vision, like, flash red and the colors invert, and you like hear sort of a buzz. I thought there was something there. There wasn't. They never brought it back.
Yeah,
and
it happens
deep
once
modulated voice. He's trying to talk to his son. He's trying to get his attention. And just like in a deep voice, you hear, "Leave him alone."
Once again, that doesn't make sense. It's a 17-year-old girl that he's supposedly talking with. It doesn't make any sense. They're literally just like, spooky effect. They throw it in the movie. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve the story whatsoever, but I was totally here for it.
Oh, it made
Especially when Kevin Bacon starts to get frustrated and he's like, "Do the voice again! Do the voice again! Do it! Do it! Do the voice again!" His goofy ass voice.
Yeah. Like if this movie came out in 2018 or later, came out today, I would not like this movie. I feel like it needs to be 1999, but wow.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that if it had come out more recently, I would not be as forgiving, but because it came out in 99 and it stars Kevin Bacon, I'm cool with it.
Yeah. I guess back on track. Tom finds out just from talking to people that it is believed that Samantha Kozak was a mentally challenged girl who just ran away from home. And once again, they're like, "Oh, well, she ran away from home. Like, her family's wrong. She just ran away from..." There's zero evidence to support that she ran away from home. She's just missing. But everybody's like, that happened. And then there's also, like, zero evidence in the movie that she is mentally challenged. Not once she appear that way or act in any other way than any other regular average person on the street would act. I don't...
There are two young guys in this movie that are the children of neighbors. One is the star football playing son of this neighbor character, Frank, that they introduce pretty early on in the movie, and he's around. And then the other is the son of actually the person that is renting this house out to Tom and his family. And they're friends, and I think they're in high school, and they are pretty much, every time they talk about Samantha, they refer to her as slow or as the R word.
Yeah, no, I mean, once again, 1999. I don't think they ever once call her slow, actually. I think they're
You're right,
crass.
actually. They only call her the R word.
I think they're crass about it 100% of the time.
And Frank corrects his son and says she wasn't that, she was just slow. But when you see her in scenes, she's like just a girl.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why I was confused. I was like, is she
really go
slow or is she... Like, is that just something they say about her? Like, is that just gossip?
No. She wore glasses.
It's literally, like, she wore glasses. So then I guess there's a time skip for a few months. We see Maggie on the phone with her sister. And she's like, "Yeah, Tom, he's been on sick leave for the last 2 weeks. And if he doesn't go to work next week, they're going to fire him. And I don't know what we're going to do, but he's really losing it. He's depressed. He won't talk to anybody. He's sitting alone in his room, and all he's obsessing about is some vision he thinks he's having, yada yada yada." And then I think in the next scene we see Tom, and he's like fine. He's like acting completely fine. Like he is talking. He doesn't seem depressed. He is like trying to find a ghost, but like other than that, he's like completely normal.
I will say another thing that they introduced in this movie that they never explain. He's constantly thirsty after having these visions. And I guess one way that they show like his madness, if you will, is in the beginning, he's really craving orange juice. Throughout the movie, he just buys more and more orange juice. And there's one scene where his wife opens up the fridge and it is full, packed to the brim with cartons of orange juice. Why the orange juice?
Ghosts make you crave orange juice. Yeah, I don't. He has visions and then has to down a like whole carton of orange juice. They do not explain why.
And no, it makes no sense. It's awesome and hilarious and would be great product placement for Tropicana. But I don't know. I don't know why they did that.
There's a lot in this movie. It's like that was a choice that they made once and then forgot about. And they don't really explain. I love it. I love it. Once again. Shortly after this, though, he sees a vision. He starts walking down the street, and it's kind of weird, and he just looks disturbed, and then he goes into a house, and he sees Adam, which is Frank's son, the football player, I believe. He has a gun, and he's like, put the gun down, and he's pointing the gun at him, and then he turns the gun on himself and shoots himself, and he dies. And then he wakes up, and it was a vision. And then he steps outside, and he starts noticing everything that he saw in his vision is happening around him to a T. So he realizes, oh my God, it wasn't a dream, it was a vision. And he runs down to that house to stop this kid from shooting himself. And he shoots himself anyway. But instead of like shooting himself in the head, he shoots himself like in the ribs and then is put in critical condition. I don't know why he shot himself in the ribs.
I don't either. I don't think that's a thing people do. I've heard like in the heart.
Yeah. Why the ribs?
Yeah, because I would say, okay, maybe they were wanting to bring the character back, but the character doesn't come back after this injury.
They could have had him like shoot it, like you said, shoot himself in the heart. And then maybe he missed the heart because it's hard to, something like that. No, he shoots himself in the ribs. Why would you ever do that? That's the one thing in Reservoir Dogs I took away was that a gut shot is the worst shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't get shot in the gut.
Absolutely. Scrambles it all up.
Yeah, you'll bleed for hours.
Yeah.
But I guess he didn't watch Reservoir Dogs.
Maggie and Jake are taking a walk. I'm sure they need to get out of the house primarily because Kevin Bacon is tearing everything up. But Jake, excuse me, I should specify. He hears bagpipes playing from the cemetery. And he runs in and pretty rudely interrupts a funeral. And it's a police funeral. And one of the policemen that is lined up saluting just by the casket looks at Jake and gives him a little wave. And Jake waves back. And Maggie, of course, she grabs her son. She takes him away. They start walking through the cemetery to get out. And this cop, I guess, leaves his post at the cemetery, or rather at the funeral, and goes up to both Maggie and Jake. Clearly, Maggie is bothered by his presence. She asks, are we doing anything wrong? Do we need to leave? And he says, oh, no worries. So she's like, okay, see you later. Thanks. Leave us alone. And this is where we realize that he's not there for Maggie. He's there for Jake. And they know each other's names. I believe the cop's name was Neil, right? And that's what Jake calls him.
He gives her a card and is like, tell your husband to come to this location at this time. It is very ominous. And at this point, like, literally, it's just The Shining. He just shines, and so does this cop, I guess. It's just The Shining.
There's people, I guess, that have, like, the gift.
The Shining.
Yeah, the Shining. She goes to this undisclosed location that this cop has written on the card when he explicitly said it's for her husband. And when she knocks on this like metal door in this alley, he comes out wearing the antithesis of a police uniform. He's wearing like beads and like a beat up old shirt. I don't know what it is. He's dressed like a hippy dippy clairvoyant guy. And the people in the room that you can't really see, they're just shadows. They're yelling at him when he opens the door. Close the door! What are you doing? Close the door! And we get this really awkward sequence of this police officer who's not a very good actor, trying to tell her, bring your husband. This is for your husband, not for you. And she really wants to go to this meeting so she can learn something to help him out because he's at home tearing up the living room and digging holes in the backyard. She does not get let into this meeting, however, and I don't really understand the point of the scene.
Yeah, because I don't think she tells Tom what she learns. But she learns basically that the spirit contacted him and is gonna continue to be more and more tenacious in bugging him until he finds her corpse. And that's exactly what happens. He starts not sleeping. He's got insomnia. He's trying to ignore her, but the visions are worse and worse and worse, to the point where he goes back to Maggie's sister, Lisa, and he begs her, "You gotta hypnotize me again so I can find out what's happening." And she does the same hypnosis thing, and this time he gets a message from Samantha, and she tells him to dig. And this is about a little over half of the movie. And for the rest of the movie, it is dig the movie. He's digging for the rest of the movie. He goes home, starts digging holes, and that's what he does for the whole movie. He digs.
He doesn't just dig holes, though. He upgrades later on. He gets sledgehammers and then a jackhammer. And truly, and then a pickaxe later on, too. He uses every tool in the book to dig. And he does dig quite a bit. But for me, I will say, it didn't lull. It didn't lull. I was still with the movie, even through all the digging.
Okay, see, this is where I was kind of like, dude, first of all, just dig. And he's digging aimlessly. In the backyard, okay, that makes sense. Then at one point, he goes to the basement to get something. And then he looks down and he's like, what if she's in the basement? So he starts ruining the basement, tearing up the floor. Like, the whole house is absolutely destroyed. And the entire time he's digging up the basement and the flooring of the house, I was like, maybe it's that, like, ancient-looking, crumbling brick wall behind you, dude. And it's, like, so obvious which part is the part where the ghost body is in. Like, not for a second. Yeah, I was like, dude, it's it's probably that wall.
The way they do this is so ridiculous, and it really hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're right, we follow him. He probably digs for, 25 minutes of the runtime?
Yeah,
30
like
minutes of the runtime?
Yeah.
He's digging for so long. So much so that, like, we get interactions. He's digging while he's interacting with his wife, while he's interacting with his son. There are several scenes in which there is dialogue happening and he is digging simultaneously. And I think literally he is digging and then gets tired and, like, puts his hand on a wall to, like, wipe his forehead. And we see a brick fall.
And we see this wall in the background, like, for a lot of him digging. Yeah. And it's so obvious.
But the whole movie, the brick is just loose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks like a wall that someone hastily bricked up and as if they're hiding a body. And that brick comes loose, like you said, and then he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, suddenly he gets it. I'd be pissed if I were him at that point.
I would. I mean, he's dumb also.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
He's clearly not the brightest bulb.
Yeah, so before that light bulb goes off in his head, he somehow knows that his wife's grandma died. I don't know how they get on the subject, but they're, in the middle of their arguing. I think her brother calls her and she says, "Oh, it's my brother. He's probably going to talk about my grandmother. She's in the hospital." And he goes, "No, she's not."
Yeah, that's right.
And then picks up the phone and her grandma's dead. And she was like, "You knew." And, doesn't really.
And then she's like, "Well, I guess I got to go to the funeral." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to stay here and dig."
Yeah, he says, like, have fun.
Stuff to do. I'm going to dig. Yeah. And she's like, "Okay." Another thing that she forgives so quickly when really she should be livid.
Yeah.
Later on, Kevin Bacon being alone at the house is actually quite vital to the story.
So while she's away, this is when he discovers the body. While she's away at her grandmother's wake, she calls him and says, "Hey, I'm going to come pick you up." And he was like, oh, you don't have to do that. It's like an hour away and I'm really tired. I'm doing a lot better. She was like, it's only an hour away. I'll come get you and then we'll drive back because you need to be here. And he was like, oh, yeah, I mean, maybe you shouldn't do that. And then she hangs up. And then, pan out and his house is destroyed. And he's like, damn. So he keeps digging, and this is when he inadvertently knocks down that brick wall and finds the body. When Maggie comes back, she asks Jake if he wants to come with her. And he says, no, I want to stay here because of the feathers. And we're like, okay, what are the feathers? So she lets him stay there with her sister. And so yeah, she's coming back to pick him up. He finds the body and he sticks his hand out and he grabs the hand of the corpse and gets one final vision where revealed to him is what happened on that fateful day. Would you like
it's
to
a whole
talk about
professionally shot sequence.
Yeah, I don't know. Once again, it's like who is this? Who's this vision? Whose perspective is this vision from? Because it's not this girl, because we see her. But whatever.
Yeah, herein lies, in my opinion, the weakest part of this movie.
Me too,
which is unfortunate because it's building to this the whole time.
Agree.
But in this vision, he sees that Samantha was called in from off the street while she was taking a walk or headed somewhere by who? Except the two neighbor boys, the son of Frank, the friendlier neighbor, and the other son of the landlord. The landlord's son, who is an older boy, I don't know if maybe he's graduated or what. He calls in Samantha from off the street, and it's cold out. He says, "Come on, hey, come over here," and she does. And as she enters, already you know that there's some shenanigans afoot. They're passing around a bottle of liquor. There's like plastic hanging from the walls for whatever reason. I think maybe they were even renovating it for. The boy starts to get really, really handsy with Samantha. He's telling her that he wants to be her friend. She does say that he can kiss her, but then that's obviously not what he tries to do. And before you know it, we have a physical altercation on our hands. He gets aggressive with her, and she falls on the ground and breaks her mouth, basically. Her teeth are just shattered. And in a panic, him and the younger boy that he's with, I don't know why this is the solution they come up with, but they grab some plastic, put it on her head, and suffocate her. She's able to get a handful of his hair while she's on the ground in a struggle. And that handful of hair is actually still on her when she's found in the wall.
This was absolutely the weakest part of the movie. What is the
motivation? They don't really set up that these... Right. What's the motivation? They don't set up that these guys are, this aggressive, or they don't even show them exhibiting any guilt. I mean, they call her the R word several times. So I guess maybe that should have been our indication. I pretty much had known that Frank was going to be involved somehow from the first 20 minutes of the movie, especially when he corrects his boys and says she was a nice girl. I got the feeling that he had some involvement in this. So Kevin Bacon, in the vision that he sees, only sees the two younger guys. And so he decides he's going to go to Frank's house and tell him himself what he found.
Yeah, what this is the part of the movie where it's like every decision, what is that? First of all, why did they kill this girl? They like, oh man, I was just trying to shut her up by putting plastic in her mouth and I accidentally suffocated her. Okay,
yeah.
They killed that girl. And now they're like, oh my god, I can't live with myself. I killed that girl. But like, what was his plan? Wasn't really an accident. He was there to assault her. Like, what was the plan?
He had already assaulted her at that point. And I don't know, I guess they're trying to sell us that in a panic he made that decision, but it's murder. Yeah. I mean, it's cold-blooded murder.
I mean, yeah, and kind of premeditated. Like, I don't think he intended to end that day with killing her, but he definitely was going to assault her. And then it's like, okay, I guess because she's slow, like they keep saying, maybe she won't be able to tell people, but like she could, once again, could like speak and communicate fine. So like she absolutely could have told
there's
people.
There's no indication that she is quote unquote slow or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Kevin Bacon figures this out, and he's like, oh my god, the first thing I should do is tell the father of the murderer. Like,
Right.
the father of the guy who shot himself, so you know he has a gun. Like, what? Why are you giving people a reason to kill you? Because that's exactly what he does.
He's already proven that he's getting visions that are successfully telling the future. And he has a vision of Frank telling him, they're going to kill you for this. I just don't know why he wasn't more cautious. But I guess he's trying to be a friend to Frank. Blah, blah, blah.
So he tells Frank, he brings Frank into his house, shows him the body, and then Frank's, shocker, pulls a gun on him and is like, I helped them do it. I helped them hide the body. They were just kids and they had their whole life ahead of them. And I was like, this is so dumb.
We do get this scene in which you are led to believe that he kills himself because he's got the gun. He pulls it out. You think he's going to kill or try to kill Tom with it. But Tom runs out of the basement. He lets one shot into the air just before Tom runs out. And then when Tom leaves, you hear another gunshot.
Yeah.
And you're left to believe that Frank has shot himself.
Yeah, he was talking about how he can't live with the guilt and all that. So you figure.
Right. I knew he had not. I knew what they were going to do at this point in the movie.
Yeah, so that happens, and then ding dong, someone else is at the door. It's a very busy time for Tom. And
lots of visitors.
Yeah, who is it? Who could it be? But the father and son duo of the other party involved in the murder.
Yeah, and this is the son that did not shoot himself.
Yeah, and they seem to be a little more callous about it, and they're like, it's raining, could you let us in? And he's like, I don't know about that, and they let themselves in. So he's in quite the pickle, Tom is, right now.
And basically right as they get in, they start to rough up Tom. Tom makes a scramble and tries to get away from these two guys that are just like hanging out in his living room. And the really athletic older boy, he grabs like the fire poker and hits Tom in the kneecap and knocks him to the ground. And they grab a pillow when they knock him out and try to suffocate him. But at this point, we see that Maggie's actually outside and she has a knife that she had grabbed. Funny enough, she was reminded to grab this bag with the knife in it by her son, who gets visions, which I thought was clever. I thought that was a cool way of showing that like the kid knew that something was going to happen.
Yeah. So she goes in with her knife, and then gun beats knife, so they take her hostage, and now they've got them both, and I guess they're going to have to kill them both. And I thought this was very anticlimactic, but like they're all in a room, they got guns on them, and then Frank, who is not dead, just comes out of the basement and shoots both of them.
Like, I guess Frank was just taking target practice when Kevin Bacon walked out.
Yeah, and then I think he shoots himself after that too. But like,
he does.
Wow, it's very anticlimactic.
He also, I just want to note, he definitely did not have, unless he reloaded while he was in the basement, he did not have enough shots to do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
He had a revolver.
Yeah, I don't know.
He used 2 in the basement and then like loaded those guys up with like 8.
His semi-automatic.
I was like,
revolver. So basically, like, all is well that ends well. It's a happy little ending. In the struggle, when he shoots Mr. Damon, yeah. So when he shoots one of the guys, the guy that has a gun, the dad, he falls back and shoots on accident. He shoots into the air, and the bullet goes through the ceiling, and we see it go through Jake's bed, through his pillow, and feathers fly up in the air. And that's when we're like, oh, that's what he meant when he said he was afraid of the feathers. Okay. Once again, like, it was kind of neither here nor there. Like, if that didn't happen, this would be the same movie. But they keep having to show you that the kid is clairvoyant.
I started to realize in the last 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, and especially more now talking about it, the kid's clairvoyance, or whatever you want to call it, let's just stick to that, is pretty useless. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah. No, the kid is literally there to be like a creepy kid. They could have been a couple with no children.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would have had the same effect.
It would have been the same movie. Yeah. Yeah.
The most 90s part part of this movie, in my opinion, that I did notice the age was the resolution.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was just like, okay, happy ending, everybody's fine. They don't explain how like they could possibly get a story straight. Like, what could they have
Right.
told the cops? I have no clue. But like, they get off scot free. It's all fine. I
Well,
think.
and then the way that they do that final sequence
Yeah,
when
please.
her spirit is set free, uh, we get a transition. We get the sense that some time has passed, and there's this slow, lingering shot that it starts to zoom in of a U-Haul truck, and they show the passage of time by showing Maggie and Tom carrying boxes in and out, and it slowly starts to zoom in. And what I thought was funny that at the center of the frame they have the word moving, and I was like, okay, are they going to do something with this word? What are they doing? But no, the reason they zoom in so far is because there's this last shot with like 90s indie rock playing of Tom and Maggie's hands slowly meeting, like they've passed each other,
Oh
and then
my
they
god,
reach
yeah.
each other, and like they're doing like, I don't know, weird fingertip play, and and I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
And then we get a fantastic shot of Samantha's ghost exiting the house because now she's been set free, and she like puts on her coat and walks, and a car is coming towards her, but it drives right through her because she is a ghost.
And because she's a ghost, yeah. And
But
she
she's free.
dissipates and she's like smiling. She's like, "Ah, I'm free." You know, it's so stupid. And then my favorite part was the ending that, like, once again, the child is unnecessary. They're driving away, they're holding hands in their U-Haul, and then the camera pans back to Jake in the back seat. And he's looking at all the houses, and slowly you hear like a bunch of like whispers of spirits that get louder and louder and louder, and then he covers his ears, and the movie ends. Like, why? He's just hearing spirits, and then the
like
movie
all the-
ends, and there's no reason for it. But sure, why not?
Jake's gonna have a hard life.
Basically, I guess that's like, were they gonna get a sequel? I don't. It doesn't feel like they were trying to get a sequel.
They did get a sequel.
They did?
Here we enter the fun part of the podcast. I get to tell you that there was a direct-to-DVD sequel. I don't know if it had much to do with the movie, with the first movie, I should say.
Well, it's not like this is like a crazy known name. I don't even know why they would have to write off of its popularity.
Yeah, because I'd never heard of this movie
Okay.
before. But the second movie stars Rob Lowe.
I looked it up. Jake is in it, but he's just a secondary character. He's not the main
Right.
character. Rob Lowe is.
Yeah, which is odd. They
Believe-
should have just maybe picked it up with.
What?
character.
What?
And I was wrong. It's not a direct-to-DVD movie. I think it was a Sci-Fi Channel exclusive.
Of course it was. That makes sense. Oh, what a great! And there's another thing we completely did not talk about. Where, at one point, he's playing his guitar, and Jake comes up to him, and plays a little riff that goes like do 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 do.
Oh my god!
And he's like,
I
"That
totally
song.
knew what it was.
That song, I know that song. What is that song?" And then when he sees the vision of her murder, there's a radio playing as she's being murdered, and it's like an edgy rock 90s cover of Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. But he's also
the best
supposed
part about it.
Yeah, he's supposed
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
be this like edgy blue collar guy in a band, but also he can't recognize the riff from Paint It Black.
I know. I recognized it immediately, and I was like, "That's Paint It Black." But as he was asking himself over and over again, "What is it? What is it?" I was like, "Okay, it's not Paint It Black. Like, I have to be wrong.
Yeah.
Paint It Black is too obvious. Nope, it's Paint It Black. It's Paint It Black."
Just cause.
And some discount Green Day band's cover of Paint It Black
Yeah.
was playing
Yeah.
the day she died.
Yeah, so that was the movie. I love this movie. I had such a fun time. Like that's a fun time. That's what this movie was.
Oh, I agree. I think there's a lot of really good things here. I think that the camera work is good. The script's not bad. There are things that I think could have been cut that were not, and that is a little bit to the movie's detriment. But overall, I actually think that this is a pretty solid late '90s thriller. No, I think it's underrated. The fact that I had never heard about it before you and some guy on Letterboxd is ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't
'cause
believe I never heard about it.
It's not bad.
Like, never even heard about it. I don't know how my brother heard about this, actually. Like, this is so random. But it was fun. He's in, I've seen another movie that was a horror movie starring Kevin Bacon. I think it came out like 2015. And it was like probably the worst, like most boring movie I've ever seen. And it was a like ghost. He has a haunted child, like kind of the same similar plot. But this was that movie, but infinitely better. So, I thought he was pretty young here, but I didn't. I think he used to not look good for his age, but now he does.
Right. Right. He's kind of looked 50 his whole life.
The other movie's called The Darkness, and it's
Oh, never mind. I'm talking about a different movie.
Oh, damn. Well, I guess he's in a lot. Is it The Hollow Man?
No.
The Hollow Man came out after this, and evidently...
Look, he's got some sneakers.
Look, swing and a miss. They're not all going to be winners.
Everyone knows that Kevin Bacon has some pretty bad movies under his belt. I would buy this movie. I would show this movie to people.
Well, maybe it's at your local library. That's a good place to look for movies.
Yeah, that's super random.
Yeah, very fun movie though. There's other reasons to watch it, but for me, the main allure was the fact that it was just so painfully 90s. If you like movies like that, then this is perfect. I adore movies like that. I think they're so funny. In this movie, you'll get a kick out of it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun and easy to follow.
Yeah.
So easy that you might find yourself wondering things before the character does.
Look, he's not the brightest guy. It's fine. You don't have to be. It's all right. Well, thank you for joining me, Adrian.
Thank you, buddy. This was a good one.
Yeah, I really. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching it with me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.